All right, welcome back to another episode of the Hell Money Podcast. My name is Sun Wukong from Journey to the East, Journey to the West. And this is my co-host, the Python Spirit.
Yeah, which I don't... Is that even a real character? Or is it like...
It is a real character. I think in one TV adaptation, one Chinese TV adaptation of Journey to the West, the Python Demon was portrayed by a hot chick, which is why you're the Python Demon right now.
Right, of course. And why did we choose to do Journey to the West costumes here?
Because we wanted to reach out to the Asian degens.
Yeah.
You know, with some piece of, relevant Asian culture and history.
Yeah, to pay homage.
Journey to the West, which is a beloved folktale, hundreds of years old, about Sun Wukong, the Monkey King, who is made of stone and acquires, powers through Taoist, stuff.
Okay, I didn't even know that. The only thing that I knew was, so I tried to kind of find some TikTok sounds and TikToks as inspiration, both for like the looks and also just like to make some TikToks. And all I found was Sun Wukong thirst trap edits from the Lego Sun Wukong.
Yeah, the furries
adaptation.
will really go for anything.
The furries are crazy over Sun Wukong.
Control.
It is kind of the ideal target because he's a man, but he's also a monkey. So it's anthropomorphized already.
Right.
It
true.
is. It's the perfect.
Sun Wukong was the original furry.
What did he say?
Yeah.
Yep.
So that's why we're doing these costumes this episode. But what's this episode about, Casey?
This episode is about runes. We're recording this on April 16th, I think it is.
I think this is going to come out after the Runes launch, but...
Yep. Runes launches the Halving, which is right now projected to be for April 19th.
I hope it's 420.
Yep, it's not going to be.
Can the devs just slow things down a little bit?
Slow things down.
Well, how off is it? Because when I looked last time, it was only 2 hours off from 420 UTC.
Today I looked at mempool.space, and it says mid evening 19th. But I don't know.
But PST,
I don't know if they're saying PST or EST or what they're saying.
So I've seen that UTC projected right now is going between like 22 UTC on the 19th to 0 UTC on the 20th.
Interesting.
So it's kind of right in there.
Yeah.
I hope it's a 420.
I think so. That'd be very meme.
You think it's going to be 420?
I have no idea. I have no opinion on this. Who knows?
Yeah, I mean, can the devs slow things down? There was like an 80-minute difference between block time the other day. That could literally be the difference between a 419 versus a 420.
Yeah, absolutely.
Halving.
Yep.
Epic.
Yep.
But so Runes launches at the Halving block.
Erin, what are runes?
Jesus fucking Christ. Runes are a fungible token protocol.
That's right.
On Bitcoin.
Yep.
So shitcoining on Bitcoin.
Shitcoining on Bitcoin. Yep.
In contrast to Ordinals, which is a non-fungible token protocol on Bitcoin.
A different kind of shitcoining on Bitcoin.
Exactly. Yep. So we've seen how Ordinals has progressed over the last year and a couple months, right?
Yep.
It's interesting now that we get so much pre-hype for runes.
Very different launch from Ordinals.
You know what's going to be so sad is if we did all of this and then the Halving block comes and runes just like a major flop. We still post the episode like, yay, runes on.
It's crazy. Like, I've said this many times, like inscriptions and Ordinals, we were working on it. Really nobody cared until we launched it. So our motivation was like at its lowest right before we launched it. We just wanted to get something out the door, get something to users. And it immediately just blew up and became insanely popular. Forbes reporters were like in my DMs, like trying to get an interview with me pretty quickly. This is very different.
Yeah.
Not only has there been like there's been pre-degenning, right? People have been degenning on runes before runes have even come out. There's really almost a runes ecosystem. I think you can say that with a straight face at this point.
No, there is. I mean, I've heard you say, because you're not, to be honest, that tapped into like the ecosystem.
I don't know anything that's going on. People are like, where do I do this? Well,
you're like,
download Ord. Run a Bitcoin core node.
Which is it's not a bad recommendation, but I've heard you say to a couple people like, like Runes is going to launch, but it's going to take a little while for the ecosystem to be built out. It's like, actually, I don't think that's true. I think that
0 to 60 in like 0 seconds.
Because what are the main kind of components that are needed for Runes? You need like a Runes aware wallet.
Yeah, well, we can talk about what Ord is, and then like Ord provides a wallet, or Ord provides an implementation of the protocol, which is basically like an index, which figures out where the runes are, like in which wallets and which addresses have runes. Ord is also a wallet, so you can actually make transactions that do things with runes, that create runes and transfer runes. And then you can also, it's also a block explorer. So you can go to ordinals.com or anywhere that somebody is running Ord, and you can see which runes exist and which ones are being minted and all their stats and stuff.
So Ord, so I mean, like, what are the limitations of Ord? Like, Ord is a wallet, but can you trade runes? Like, you can etch and mint.
You can't trade runes. So, the first reason that people might want to use something, we should talk about our disclaimer first. We kind of skipped over.
Yeah, let's
disclaimer.
fucking talk about the disclaimer.
Yeah,
first.
the disclaimer is that
very important disclaimer.
Runes are shitcoins. Okay, runes are a form of degenerate gambling. Okay, that people enjoy engaging in. And they're very honest about this. I've been very straightforward about the fact that, like, runes are not the future of finance. And it's not like the other tokens out there, the other chains out there, they are not the future of finance either. Runes is just very honest about what it is. Runes is a fungible token protocol. It's so that people can meme, so they can pump and dump. They can create this nice distributed Ponzi scheme. You should treat it as such, right? You should treat it as fun, as a fun diversion. You should not put more money into it than you can afford to just get completely 100% wiped out, just like nuked from orbit. And whatever you make, you should put it in a Bitcoin, and you should lock it away in Mama Bitcoin.
Well, I think that's why I like runes, is that, you know, most fungible token protocols exist on Ethereum, but now mostly Solana, right? Like, everyone's all about
Solana
their
too.
Solana meme coins.
Yeah.
And essentially what that means is that when you do your gambling and degenning, you cash out into Solana or Ethereum versus cashing out into Bitcoin.
Yep.
Which I feel like more comfortable recommending to people. I mean, I don't know if legally I can, but like,
This is never financial advice.
this is never financial
Would you
advice.
take financial advice from Sun Wukong, the Monkey King?
No, he seems like he doesn't really even have a need for that.
He probably doesn't have a stance on your personal finances.
He doesn't have a credit score.
No.
Maybe a social credit
He
score.
has a social credit score.
But, you know.
Which is excellent.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think...
And also, people will say that their rune has utility. Do not believe them. They are fucking lying to you. Okay? They're going to say their rune is like magical and does XYZ, and there's a rune multiverse or whatever that you can... Whatever, like... Your first approximation should be that this is all lies.
Yeah, to be fair, I feel like that is the dominant narrative at this
Absolutely.
point. Like, I think the last kind of, well, I don't know. What do you think the last bull market was? What was the narrative of the last bull market? Like the 2021
What
bull
was
market?
going on there? It was DeFi.
DeFi.
That was the narrative. Was DeFi and airdrops and yield farming. That
Yes,
was the
yield
narrative.
farming. I
Yield
remember
farming.
fucking
Yeah.
yield farming.
Yeah, where does the yield come from?
Where
It
does
comes
the
from
yield come
people
from, guys?
printing tokens. That's where it comes from. Making up tokens.
Yeah, but I mean,
we have yield farming on Bitcoin now with the pre-runes like airdrops.
we'll get into that. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I think so far I have not seen a strong narrative on Solana or Bitcoin or whatever that there is utility or future of finance here. Of course, there are still people like banging that
there's
drum.
going to be. I think that's going to kind
you
of
think
follow.
so?
Yeah, I think it will. I think there's going to be like grifters post-launch who are like, come in and try to rerun the same, playbook. I think it's actually probably going to be worst on L2s. Where people make
yes,
L2s
actually,
that can...
that's where the grift is there's this whole L2 narrative of like, we're gonna do this thing and it's gonna have all this utility and we're building this L2. Like, show me one that works.
Yeah.
I mean, besides
that's not like a
Lightning.
giant multi-sig.
Yes, exactly. Like, I think it's true that there will be that narrative of future of finance stuff, and some of it probably will be genuine innovation, right? Like, I think that there are improvements and innovations that can be made on Bitcoin or wherever the fuck else you care about that are real, but separating that out from the 99.99999% of like astronaut mentality of people who think that they're going to be able to achieve something that they have no idea technically how they will achieve is probably going to be completely impossible for most people. I mean, even for me, like, I don't have time to read all your dumbass white papers.
Yeah. I think it's going to be really interesting just seeing all of the playbooks that have been run on other chains being run back on Bitcoin, right? We'll probably see ICOs. We'll probably see like crazy projects with their like ICOs and DeFi and stuff like that. Yeah.
Well, I mean, actually, we should talk about kind of the glossary of runes. I think that's important here, because what I was going to say is, I think that BRC20 kind of created this open mint narrative that seems pretty ubiquitous.
Yep.
But that being said, of course, you can pre-mine runes, right?
Yep.
So maybe just go through like what are runes? What are all the stupid ass words you've come up with that describe things that, you know, you've just essentially rebranded from other shit coining?
That's right. Yeah. So runes are a fungible token protocol on top of Bitcoin. Bitcoin uses what's called the UTXO model, where when you have a Bitcoin wallet, you don't just have a flat balance in Bitcoin. You have these little piles of Satoshis, and your wallet can spend one or more of those piles. And when you spend one of those piles, it goes away, and you create new piles that belong to you or that belong to other people. That's how you send Bitcoin.
We have an episode about this, right? Which one is that? It's some craft store Bitcoin
Craft
one.
Store Bitcoin, the UTXO set.
The original one? Or
Yeah,
is
I think it's the original. We did an episode called Craft Store Bitcoin. We did 2 episodes called Craft Store Bitcoin, where we explain how the Bitcoin's UTXO set model works and how the Lightning Network works.
We have some really good Bitcoin educational podcasts.
We do.
Like,
our
content.
our back catalog is stacked.
It's incredible. Like, we should just remake the episodes at this point in costume.
In costume.
You know?
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I think that actually is useful. I mean, you can watch our Craft Store Bitcoin episodes, or you can watch whatever, or
My God,
read
this
whatever.
wig is killing me.
You're dying.
Yeah, it's dying.
You look good.
Thank you.
But I think it is actually useful to understand the UTXO model, because that's, I mean, people say UTXOs all the time.
Yeah, they do.
And no one ever knows what they mean.
No.
I didn't know what they meant until we did that episode.
Yeah, UTXOs are really just piles of Satoshis. All the Bitcoins in the world are sitting in one UTXO or another. And runes...
And that's just unspent transaction output.
Unspent
UTXO.
transaction. Yep, that's right. Yep. And runes extends, the runes protocol extends this model for people who are using the protocol, for people who opt into the protocol, into a model where these UTXOs can actually contain balances of arbitrary fungible tokens. So one UTXO can contain sats, but it can also contain, you know, any rune, like the foo rune or the bar rune or the pee poo token rune. Any rune you want can be in a UTXO.
And that's different from ordinals and inscriptions, where, like, if you think about Bitcoin with no ordinals or inscriptions or runes lens on it, just kind of pure Bitcoin.
Yep.
It's just this like undifferentiated mass of sats sitting in a UTXO.
Yep.
And then you put ordinal theory on top of that. And then you say, well, this sat is this sat is this, this sat is, and you know, in their order of transactions, or like the order that they were mined, that's their ordinal number.
Yep.
And then you can kind of, if you have an ordinals aware view of that UTXO, you can pick specific ones out.
Yep.
Whereas runes is essentially, if I'm understanding this correctly, it's also sort of an undifferentiated mass that exists within that UTXO alongside the sats.
That's right. Yeah.
Right?
So runes, the protocol doesn't have any connection to ordinals or inscriptions. They're completely separate protocols. And this was done to keep runes simple, to make sure that, you know, the runes protocol could be as simple as possible and didn't inherit any baggage from the inscriptions protocol.
Right. I mean, because that's sort of the thing with BRC20s, right? Is that it's like a fungible token protocol written on top of inscriptions. So you have this unnecessary middle layer where you have to be ordinals aware.
Yep.
Right? Because does the BRC20 balance live on the SAT? Is that the idea?
No, BRC20 is a pretty odd duck. It is a account-based model where really an address holds a certain balance of BRC20 tokens.
And then you just have an inscription
that can you make a transfer inscription that then deducts from your balance, and then temporarily those BRC20 tokens live on that SAT, at which point they get transferred from that by the rules of ordinal theory. That inscription gets transferred and it gets credited to a new address.
Right.
So they actually only temporarily live on sats.
And there's no reason for this except just that, I mean, I think like ordinals just sort of opened this door for people to be like, oh, what else could exist on Bitcoin?
Yeah. And BRC20 is probably one of the simplest protocols that you could make on top of inscriptions. I think that's BRC20's primary virtue, is its simplicity.
Let's go back to runes, because we kind of derailed ourselves. Like, you said what runes are.
Yep.
Can you explain like etching, minting, all of that kind of stuff?
Yep. So the process of creating a new rune with a new unique name, is called etching. When you etch a rune, you're sort of reserving that name for that rune and setting the rune's properties. The properties that a rune can have, first and foremost, are its name. Its name is any combination of the characters A through Z in uppercase between 1 and 26. So This was chosen for simplicity. I think it's very confusing if you also have numbers. You can mix up 0 and O. If you have Unicode characters, it gets very confusing because you can have like emojis in your ticker symbol, stuff like that. So runes are only the characters A through Z. They can also have spacers, so a little bullet character like a dot between the letters of the rune's name, and this helps them be more readable.
But it doesn't make any, like if you had one with a spacer or without a spacer, it recognizes both as the same.
That's right. Yeah. If you create like the good morning rune, like GOODMORING, then somebody cannot also create GOOD and then a spacer MORING. You set the spacers when the runes is created, and it doesn't change the name of the rune for uniqueness purposes.
Yeah, I mean, I know people really threw a fit over the unique names thing. I think they've gotten over it.
I think they've just completely gotten over it.
Well, because
we should say, like, this was a point of controversy when I was designing the protocol. A lot of people didn't like the idea of unique names. And the alternative to unique names is having a really confusing, non-human readable identifier that actually identifies the rune. And then the name of the rune is just, it can be duplicated. So if you can't say, oh, buy this rune and say the name of the rune. You have to say buy this rune, and then you have to give this like gibberish.
You have to determine,
identifier.
oh, well, it's this rune and not this rune. It's this Pepe, not this Pepe.
That's right. Yep.
Whereas there will only ever be one Pepe.
That's
rune.
right. Yep. And people were saying like, oh, this is bad. Like, what if Google wants to get the Google rune and they can't get it because somebody else has gotten it? So first off, this is not the stock market, okay? I hope that some
this is like
degen,
the Neopet stock market.
I hope that some degen gets the Google rune and Google can't have it. I would love that. But then also, like on the stock market, Google can't even get the Google ticker. They have to get GOGL or GOOGL or some nonsense, right? And that's fine. Everybody just knows like, oh, this is the Google rune, you know? What was I going to say? Oh yeah, and if you really don't care about the name of your rune, you want to refer to it by a specific name, you can get a so-called nameless rune, which has an auto-generated name, and you can just treat that as an implementation detail. You can say, and this is how I think that people, for example, will issue stable coins, right? Tether might not care if they get the Tether, rune name. They might prefer to have one of these auto-generated names and then just tell everybody, okay, this is the Tether stablecoin on runes.
Don't you think they would just want a cute name though?
Yeah, maybe they would.
For branding. I mean, listen, if you're creating a stable coin or whatever else and you have the opportunity to make it a human readable name and you choose not to, NGMI.
Yeah,
sorry.
True.
That's like just a complete disregard for marketing.
Yeah.
But now we're on a tangent.
So the other properties that a rune can have, it can have a currency symbol, which is displayed after the amount of runes. This is just sort of a fun little, you can pick an emoji for your currency symbol or whatever you want. It's just displayed after the balance of runes.
So, for example, you could have like a flame emoji.
Flame emoji
and
is
that would
a
be,
common choice.
If you have 10 of that rune, it would be 10 flame emoji.
Yep, that's right.
It's cute.
This doesn't have to be unique. You can have whatever character you want. One Unicode character. Unfortunately, some emojis are multiple Unicode characters. So, for example, if you want like the black like Dracula emoji, that is multiple code points. So
you can't have Black Dracula?
You can't have the Black Dracula emoji for
so
your
you can only have
system.
Yellow Dracula?
Only yellow Dracula.
Fuck.
NGMR.
I didn't realize this.
So other properties are the divisibility, like how many times one unit of the rune can be subdivided. So it can be subdivided in 10 or subdivided in 100, or can it not be subdivided at all? And then also it can have an open mint. And that open mint can have terms. So the two primary sort of properties of an open mint, the two primary terms are how many units you get per mint and the number of mints that are allowed. So if you wanted to create a rune that had 1 million supply, you could say every mint you get 1,000, and there are 1,000 mints permitted in total. And
then you can decide how much that can be divided up. Like, for example, is it divisibility equals 0 is like not divisible at all? Or
not divisible at all. That's right.
So if you had divisibility equals 0 for that example, you could mint 1,000 at a time, and then you could only divide that up to be a whole rune. Right?
That's right. Yep.
So it's like a pile of doubloons.
Of doubloons.
You can't cut in half.
That's right. Yep. So then you can also say the start and end block heights for the mint. So I want this mint to start, however many blocks into the future and last for however many blocks. Or you can say, I want this mint to start at a certain block offset, or you can specify an absolute height. So like, I want this mint to start on block 1 million and end on block 2 million. Or I want this mint to go for, 100 blocks and, start 100 blocks after the rune is etched and then end 200 blocks after the rune is etched.
So if you have a supply capped rune, let's say you want to make a rune that has a supply cap of 21 million, for example, is that incompatible with like a time stamp or like block height?
No,
rune?
you can do all of them. And if you want to have a supply cap that you really want that to be the supply cap, then you just don't have an end time for the rune.
Okay. But you could do like only this number could ever exist, but also there's this 100 block time where you're able to.
Yes.
And then if you go past that, then the supply is never reached.
Yep, that's right.
Okay,
Yep.
that's interesting. But so, I know what you mean because we have talked about this a lot, but I feel like part of the problem is it's very hard to just vocally explain this and have someone get it. Like, could you explain maybe in the context of uncommon goods as an example, like the parameters that you set for that?
Sure. Yeah. So there was a big discussion of like, is Casey going to hard code runes? The main reason that I was thinking about hard coding runes is that I didn't want the early runes to be lame.
That's literally the only reason.
Yeah, to have lame names or be pre-mined or whatever. You can also pre-mine a rune. You can do any combination of pre-mining and open mint for a rune. So you can say, at the beginning, I'm going to allocate this amount of runes to myself, but then it's also going to have an open mint. So I just didn't want lame runes that were all pre-mined to be the early runes. So I was talking about it. I was like, okay, should I do 1? Should I do 10? Ultimately, I decided to only hard code 1 rune.
We delivered so much fake news in our Vikings
much fake news
episode.
Yeah.
We were like, there's going to be a furry rune. There's going to be a United States dollar rune.
Hell Money Pod is basically a disinformation machine.
Absolutely.
Yep. So there's only going to be 1 hard-coded rune, Rune 0. It is called Uncommon Goods. And the mint starts on the halving block.
With the launch of runes.
And then continues until the next halving. So for 4 years, it's going to be mintable. It is uncapped. You can mint any amount you want, or it can be minted any number of times. But each mint can only claim 1 uncommon goods.
What's the divisibility?
0. So it can't be subdivided. Yeah, doubloons. Yep. So, I don't know what's going to happen with the price of that. I think people are probably going to mint it because it is Rune 0.
It's a shelling point.
Yep. But its price should, during the first 4 years, never get above the cost of a Bitcoin transaction.
Right, because why would you mint with a Bitcoin transaction when you could just buy a single one?
Right.
Although, don't you pay for the Bitcoin transaction to buy it?
Yes.
So actually, it's capped at a little bit higher than that, right?
Yeah, and any intermediate transactions you need to move it around. So if you need to mint it and then transfer it and then somebody buys it and it's transferred to them.
Then I don't think that it's capped at the price of a Bitcoin transaction because regardless of whether you mint it or you buy it, you have to do a Bitcoin transaction, right?
Right. So it'll probably be, the price will have some relationship to the cost to do a Bitcoin transaction.
Right. Because
it's like some number of Bitcoin transactions that you expect to have to be able to do between getting it and selling it.
We'll see. Now we're doing some market prediction stuff that we have no idea. This is where our expertise is completely.
Our expertise is run out long ago. Yeah.
That's why we have to, put on a whole show.
Keep it exciting. The creator etches a rune, then people mint it, and then you can transfer a rune in a normal Bitcoin transaction. The system is intentionally very, very simple. It kind of has the same design of Ordinals, where the main implementation of Ordinals and inscriptions is also the main implementation of runes. It's called Ord, and Ord just gets Bitcoin transactions from an instance of Bitcoin Core, and it uses those transactions, the fact that they've been included in a block and accepted by Bitcoin Core, as evidence that those transactions were authorized to be spent. so it doesn't need to look at public keys or addresses or scripts or anything like that to like try to figure out like what's going on. It just goes, okay, these UTXOs are being spent. These UTXOs have been created. Let me apply the very simple rules of runes to determine how the runes move from the inputs to the outputs.
So runes are created and destroyed with UTXOs, but then also pop up in the new UTXO,
That's
much
right.
like how Bitcoin works.
Yep, much like how Bitcoin work. And so by default, when you spend a bunch of outputs, which have different amounts of runes, all of those runes will go to the first non-operaturn output of that transaction. So an operaturn output is an unspendable output that is used to carry data, and it is also the place that you would put a rune protocol message, which is called a runestone.
Can you explain? Okay, a runes protocol message is a runestone.
Yep.
I'm, the branding has been overtaken by some.
Yeah.
But can you explain what a runestone is in the context of runes?
Yeah, so a runestone is, by default, if you don't give any other instructions, the transaction will not mint a rune and it will not, etch a rune. So by default, it does nothing. And if there's any runes on the inputs or outputs, those runes will go to the first non-operaturn output. Mm-hmm. So if you would like to change what the transaction does, if you would like to etch a rune, or you would like to mint a rune, or you would like to send the runes on the inputs to different outputs, like to transfer them to other people or to transfer them to yourself, you include what is called a runestone in an operaturn output. So a runestone is just an encoded set of instructions that say what you would like to do with that transaction.
So it's essentially non-standard behavior. Like there's a certain standard behavior that it does. And then if you want it to behave differently, like you want it to send to a different place, then you specify that in the runestone.
Yep.
I mean, realistically, most people will probably never interface with this, right? Like it'll be abstracted away from the degens.
Yeah. You will see on your transactions that, do a etching or a mint or a transfer, you will see that additional operaturn output in your transactions that will give those instructions. Mm-hmm. Yep. So, yes, and then a runestone is it's in an operaturn output, which is an additional dummy output that carries data. And that output will say things like, oh, I want to transfer 10 runes to the second output instead of the first, or I want to mint this rune. You can mint one rune per transaction of your choice, or I want to etch a rune. I want to create a new rune.
Oh my God, this is going to I'm sorry, I'm just processing how many transactions are going to be like flooding Bitcoin.
Yeah.
I'm now going to be a laser eye maxi. I'm like, fix the filters, please.
Fix the filters. So for those who don't know, there's been, because of inscriptions, which have led to high fees on Bitcoin, a lot of people don't like that. And they've been talking a lot about we should filter inscriptions, which is never going to work because miners are economically rational. They love the fees. Users like inscriptions for whatever reason. They want to make these transactions. Bitcoin is a censorship-resistant system. They will go around this, basically. So you can't stop inscriptions.
You can if you are a miner and you say, I'm not going to mine any inscriptions. Like you can do that,
yes.
right?
You will make less money than other miners, possibly substantially less money, and eventually go out of business.
Actually, so are the fees, would you still participate in the fee market though? Like let's say that you are a miner that doesn't want to mine anything that has runes or inscriptions in it, and you get a block, and your block is filled with, you still would participate in the fee market, right?
Yeah, the non-rune and inscription transactions would also be bidding to get into all blocks. They would be in the sort of general, like, non-filtered fee market.
Right, so you're essentially filtering out, so you're taking more low fee transactions than you would if you were just
because you have
mining whatever, plugging in the toaster.
Yeah, you have to pick more and more low fee transactions to fill out your block because you're skipping higher fee inscriptions or operaturn transactions.
Yeah, and it's, Bitcoin doesn't usually work that way.
What do you mean?
Bitcoin it works because it's this like adversarial system, right? Where the miners just want to make a profit and it works. I always like that Bitcoin harnesses human greed in that way,
Yeah. So regarding the filters, there's a particularly fun thing here, which is that Bitcoin actually does currently have a filter for operaturns. The maximum size of an operaturn is you can put an operaturn with 80 bytes of data in it. So the fun thing is that normal runestones, most runestones fit easily within the standard operaturn size, within that 80 byte limit. But if you want to do larger transactions, if you want to do large fan-out transactions with different amounts, the encoded runestone will wind up being above 80 bytes. So I think that if runes are sufficiently popular, we will see the end of the 80-byte op return size limit.
What would that actually look like?
The way that that looks like is that Peter Todd has made a fork of Bitcoin Core called Lib Relay or Libre Relay Bitcoin Core, which is a fork of Bitcoin Core that not only has that limit removed, but also preferentially peers with other Bitcoin Core nodes that are also running the same fork. So those nodes that have that limit removed find each other, and they form a sub-network of the normal Bitcoin gossip network where all these transactions with large op returns can propagate. So that's already the case. I think 30% of blocks, I'm not entirely sure, have these larger op return transactions.
Why did Peter Todd do that?
I think Peter Todd thinks that the op return limit is a form of sort of, how do I put this? Paternalism, yeah, paternalistic. And also this op return limit was mostly introduced when blocks were not full because people didn't want people creating big transactions that filled up blocks with
huge data.
It's sort of older. Now that blocks are mostly filled and we have a kind of robust fee market, this is not as important because you have to pay fees to get into blocks. And it is also the existence of this filter incentivizes the development of people bypassing the public mempool and submitting their transactions directly to miners. And this is bad because it means that Bitcoin Core nodes participating in the normal Bitcoin Core mempool will not have a good idea of what fees they actually need to pay to get into the next block.
This kind of, this is a tangent, but this kind of reminds me that there's probably a lot of people watching this that don't know what the Bitcoin halving is.
Oh, sure.
You know, it just made me think of it because you were talking about, before fees were necessary. And this was, why do we need fees in the first place, right? Like, why is it good to build up a robust fee market in the first place?
Yep. So Bitcoin has started with a subsidy, which is 50 new Bitcoin that come into existence with every new block
and
that
gets
just
paid
means that
to the miner. If you mine that block,
yep,
you get 50 Bitcoin.
Yep.
This was the first epic pre any halving.
That's right. 50 Bitcoin per block went to the miner.
Right.
So the Satoshi desired for Bitcoin to have a finite limit on the amount of coins ever created.
There will only ever be 21 million Bitcoin.
Only ever be 21 million. Only 2.09 quadrillion sats.
Ordinals.
Yeah, ordinals. So every 4 years, in order to facilitate that and make the currency supply finite, every 4 years, the subsidy cuts in half. Mm-hmm. So we are currently in the 6.25 Bitcoin subsidy epoch. So every block right now, you get 6.25 Bitcoin because we've had 3 or 4 halvings or whatever it is.
First it was 50, then it was 25, 12.5, now we're 6.25.
Yep.
But then once this episode's posted, which
it'll
will be after the halving.
3.125 Bitcoin per block.
Right. So basically, as Bitcoin progresses, you get less and less distribution of Bitcoin with mining a block.
Yep.
And what that means is that if you're a miner who is profit incentivized, which they should be, then you need people paying fees to put their transaction in to replace that Bitcoin that you're losing out. Like, if you're a miner who's mining right now, right, and you mine a block, you get 6.25 BTC, and you're like, great, my business is profitable or whatever. And then as of this episode posting, it'll be less than that by half, right?
That's right. Yep.
So how do you make up that loss in profits?
So the way that you make that up is with fees. So transactions bid against other transactions to be included in a block, and an economically rational miner will include the transactions that bid the highest fees. And that is where, the halving is actually pretty precipitous. Every 4 years getting cut in half leads to a negligible subsidy relatively quickly. So in order to secure Bitcoin, in order to make it costly to reorg blocks and 51% attack the network, the transaction fees also go to the miner. Mm-hmm. And so those fees must replace the subsidy over time.
And that's the original Ordinals psyop, right? Like that's, obviously you wanted NFTs on Bitcoin because in theory you wanted to inscribe.
In theory, yeah.
But, the real Ordinals psyop is adding more fees to secure the network.
Yeah,
right?
the Ordinal psyop is to get people to use Bitcoin and to get people to pay miners fees to make their inscriptions, to pay for the network security.
Yeah.
And that's also the psyop with runes, is to get everybody to use Bitcoin, to think of Bitcoin as a real money that they want to buy and sell. They want to sell their runes and get Bitcoin. They hope that their runes appreciate in Bitcoin terms, and also pay their transaction fees to the miners to help secure the network as the halving keeps going down. Like the subsidy drop is dramatic, right? It gets cut in half every 4 years. So right now we're entering the 3.125 halving epoch. In 4 years, it's going to go to 1.5. And 4 years after that, it's going to go to, 0.7, 0.8, whatever it winds up being. That is a dramatic drop off. If I was designing Bitcoin, I don't know if I would design it with such a dramatic drop off.
So you're saying you're not Satoshi?
I'm definitely not Satoshi. If you haven't figured
He's
this
not
out
Satoshi.
by now.
You can't keep secrets.
Satoshi is actually Sun Wukong. He is the real Monkey King. I'm just dressing up as Satoshi for this episode.
Maybe he's the Python demon.
Maybe he's the Python demon.
Sub character. But why? I mean, for the audience that may be watching this that has no familiarity with Bitcoin, why do you give such a fuck about Bitcoin succeeding? Personally, Casey Rodomore.
Yeah, so I think that it would be good. I think that governments do a very bad job with currency. So governments generally make it illegal for people to issue private currencies, private monies, which is one of the reasons why we basically only have government monies. And they privilege those government monies above other monies. So they say, you have to accept it for debts. We only accept taxes in this government money. And then they do just things that make us worse off with that money, right? They print more money. When the government prints money, they're taking value out of your pocket. They are essentially stealing from you because the value of your dollars goes down the more new dollars come into existence.
Yeah, I wish that more people understood this, because this was really the thing that changed. I mean, it changed my life and my perspective on what's going on in reality. I think there's so many people walking around that are like, oh man, why is this shit more expensive than it was 2 years ago? Yeah. It's because the government is printing money.
It's because the government
is
prints
printing money to pay themselves and bail themselves out.
Yep. And with like a 2 to 8% inflation rate, whatever it winds up being in the US over time, this means that like every 50 years, like the government takes 99% of every dollar, or 98% or 95 or whatever it means. I mean, that every 50 years, this useless, non-productive entity takes 95% of the wealth and then redirects it.
And that's not counting the taxes, right? Like, I think that there's a lot of people that are like, well, I'm happy to pay taxes if the roads get built.
You're getting spit roasted people. It's Eiffel Tower shit.
You're funding war. I mean, ultimately I mean, that's like the historical context. We should definitely watch our Fuck Fiat episode, just plugging us again. But I want to remake that episode.
We can chill ourselves on our own podcast.
Yeah,
that's
I think that's allowed. But I mean, I do want to do another episode where we really get into why fiat currency is so abominable, because I think that's what made me a Bitcoiner.
Yep.
Like, I don't think I'm not a highly technical person. I'm not like a huge ass nerd. I'm not a hardcore libertarian. I'm someone that noticed that the world doesn't seem to make sense, and understanding fiat and understanding Bitcoin made the world make more sense to me. And I thought, like, Bitcoin might make the world better. And it might make more sense. And I think that is, I mean, maybe we should just get like a good guest for this. I'm sure there's a lot of people who could talk about it in more historical terms than we can, but I think that this is an important thing to remember, is that, okay, we are doing like a weird performance art thing by doing this like Hell Money podcast, runes bullshit that we're doing. And it's fun and I love doing it and I wouldn't want to do anything else. But ultimately, the reason why I give a fuck in the first place enough to be doing this is because I think Bitcoin is good.
Yep.
And yeah, I don't know, have fun on runes, but like, please just fucking buy Bitcoin and participate in the Bitcoin network.
Yeah. So not only does the government print money, thus eroding the value of your money, take taxes, forbid you from using other forms of money, they also put insane regulations that make the existing government money very hard to use. It is hard to transfer. Not everybody can transfer it. There's all this intermediation where you can't interact with digital government money directly. You have to go through, like, why do we pay like 1 to 2% of our economy's GDP to Visa and MasterCard? Because they're these like incumbents that are able to Like, that doesn't make any sense. Every time you make a Visa or a MasterCard transaction, you pay 1 to 2% of that transaction. A huge amount of the economy's value flows through this. Like, I heard once that Visa makes more money off of Walmart than Walmart because they're processing Walmart's transactions.
Yeah, and they're not actually taking on any risk
Yep.
of producing the things. Yeah, I mean...
And Bitcoin fixes this.
Bitcoin fixes this.
Bitcoin has a fixed supply that would be very, 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 very hard to change. And it is a open, permissionless peer-to-peer network that anybody can participate in. It is anti-censorship, so there are economic incentives to process your transaction because the miner will get the fees regardless of what you're doing in that transaction. So it does have a technically high bar and ultimately is a high barrier to entry in terms of fees, but it provides a real alternative to the US dollar and associated other fiat currencies.
Right. I mean, in the United States, at least, I think everyone loves to say that the United States is like a capitalist, whatever, but it's not. It's a corporate socialist country.
Yeah,
you know,
there's a huge amount of collusion between governments and corporations.
And we just literally give welfare to corporations in the form of like, okay, your currency, if you wanted to just save money in US dollars, right, you're just going to lose 2+% every single year by putting your cash under a mattress, right? So instead you put it in the stock market, and all of our retirement funds are in the stock market. And essentially all that is just, it's literally just welfare checks for like the top 500 corporations.
Yep.
I mean, whatever, we should probably get back to, we're getting fucking off the rails here. We need to get back to runes. But I do think, you know, if Ordinals and runes and all of that hadn't happened, I'm sure we would just be sitting here talking about the halving because that's an interesting, fun thing.
Would we
that's
still
happening.
be doing this podcast were it not for Ordinals, runes, and
I'm
inscriptions?
sure we were
Would
doing
just
the
have gotten
podcast
bored?
more before.
Yeah, that's true.
You know, we were
Before
recording
things
every
got
single
busy.
fucking week. No, I think we would. I mean, as I said, we're obsessed with Bitcoin. This is like a weird performance art, you know, demonic / angelic entity that has, you know, manifested, and and that's why we're like this. But yeah, just fucking buy Bitcoin. Like, don't buy runes thinking that you're gonna make your generational wealth.
Yeah,
and
have fun degening on runes, right? But that's what it is. It's like playing, you know, Genshin Impact or whatever.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Is there other stuff we should talk? I mean, we had some kind of like questions and predictions. I do want to do predictions because we're filming this before the halving. This will be posted after the halving. So like, you know, runes could totally flop, for example. Bitcoin could just completely break, you know, whatever.
I don't think Bitcoin will break. Bitcoin never breaks. Bitcoin works great. Bitcoin's very simple. Runes makes fees go up and makes the blocks full, which like Bitcoin does fine with. When there are a lot of transactions on the network, nodes just store the highest fee transactions and start dropping the lower fee transactions. So there's sort of a built-in DDoS mechanism to Bitcoin.
So Bitcoin probably won't break.
It'll definitely not break. Prediction, Bitcoin won't break. Runes might break. My shitty code, me and Raph's shitty code might break.
But what would break? Like something unforeseeable, I suppose.
Yeah, some unforeseeable bug.
But it is good. I mean, you and Raph, basically, it's like April 16th now. I feel like all of March, you and Raph were just like, like slaving away, writing your code for runes.
Yep.
And then you finished it around April 1st-ish, right?
Yeah, something like that. Yeah. And we also had a friend of mine who's really smart take a look at the code and give us a pretty comprehensive.
We had a friend of mine who's really smart look at it, so I think it's fine, guys.
I think it's fine. Yeah. No, he's really smart, guys. I think it's really okay.
But I mean, people have had a chance to play around with it, to find bugs.
Yep. And there's been a lot of activity on testnet and signet minting runes. Testnet has had a huge backlog of transactions.
Are people just testing? Like for whatever thing they're doing?
I think they're testing, but I also think some people are doing like testnet airdrop, like.
Fuck yeah. But you also need to test your airdrop if you're going to do an airdrop.
True.
So
yeah, true.
It kind of makes sense.
Yep.
We should talk about that. I mean, predictions. I mean, so different from Ordinals and inscriptions, as we said, like there was no hype before the Ordinals launch. It just launched, and then people were scrambling to figure out what was going on. So many people were trying to run a Bitcoin core node for the first time, never having even used Bitcoin at all in the first place. Which was a beautiful thing to watch. But this is very different, right? Now everyone has their pre-runes. Everyone's like, guys, you got to get locked and loaded with your Bitcoin core node. And I'm like, I mean, I guess it's the cheapest way to degen, but I also am kind of just like, are people just running back an Ordinals playbook, you know?
Yeah, I mean...
In some ways. I mean, I'm not mad about it. Like, run the Bitcoin core node, like, great.
Yep.
But, you know, I'm interested to see there's all these pre-rune projects that are essentially promising a rune airdrop.
Yeah.
Right?
I think the big risk of the launch of runes is that they all just turn out to be worthless. Like everybody degens super hard. Everybody mints a bunch of rune. They're expecting like XYZ market cap for these runes. And then that just never materializes.
But they are worthless. I mean, regardless of what market cap they get, they are worthless.
No,
Except
but
for
I mean,
fun
they
entertainment.
can't make money off of it. They're trying to make money.
Yeah, of course.
That they
of
wind
course.
up not being able to sell it. I'm not talking about like emotionally and spiritually worthless, which is, yeah, they're definitely emotionally and spiritually
I
worthless.
would say that's their only worth is emotionally and spiritually.
I mean that they turn out not to be remunerative.
I mean, I guess it's
That's the big like chaos factor.
I would say the big chaos factor. I mean, it is that, but I would say specifically it's broken promises. Like I think that's
yeah.
part of the pre-hype is that there's so many people that are saying like, okay, you know, buy this inscription and then I will airdrop you a runes token once
Yep.
runes launches.
Yep.
I feel like 80 to 90% of those will not do that. Partially just because it's expensive and hard. I mean, actually, how different is it? Let's say that you have a pre-rune inscription and you airdrop 1,000 of those to 1,000 different wallets. How hard is that compared to then taking those 1,000 addresses and airdropping a runes token, like in equal quantity to each of them?
Wait, I don't think I understand the difference.
So, okay, let's say that you have a pre-runes project.
Yep.
And you have 1,000 inscriptions that are going to get some allocation of that rune
Yep.
once you make it.
Yep.
How difficult is it? Or I guess what's the difference in difficulty between that initial airdrop, which obviously you were at least technically smart enough to be able to do that, versus then now airdropping an equal amount of runes to 1,000 people?
I don't understand the difference at all. It's 1,000.
Yeah, so it's the same. So actually, maybe they can do it. That's what I'm like. I don't know. I think.
I think they can do it. It's not that hard. Yeah.
Yeah, and why not? I mean, why wouldn't they do it?
Why wouldn't they do it?
Okay, so maybe I'm bullish on pre-runes.
Yeah.
But is it harder to do? What if you do? I mean, that's the case of an equal amount, right? So it's like it's the same because airdropping an inscription versus airdropping an equal amount of a runes token is like.
And there's explicit support in the protocol for doing equal amount splits of input runes. So if you want to airdrop 1,000 people, 1,000 runes each, there's a specific way you can structure that runestone that says, take this rune, divide the amount in the inputs evenly between all of the outputs. So it does that natively.
What if you want to do an uneven?
If you want to do an uneven airdrop, then it gets expensive because you have to include a edict, which is a transfer instruction in a runestone for each different output.
And that's, I mean, so is that what
And
we were
then
talking
you get
about
into
earlier
the
where I said
80 byte op return limit. Then your op return gets over 80 bytes. You have to use like a transaction accelerator or something.
Right. So that's what I was saying earlier with like a runestone specifies a sort of non-standard transaction type of thing. Like if you want to airdrop X amount of token to this person and Y amount of like token to another person in a single transaction.
If you're doing a lot of people, then you have to.
Yeah, I mean, if you're doing 1,000 plus,
large.
which a lot of these
I think you can
are,
do
right?
about 6, splitting between six different outputs. Yeah, with different amounts.
Is that
in
even
an 80 byte op return?
With different amounts. What about with equal amounts?
Any number.
So you could do 1,000.
Yeah, you could do a 1 meg block with a zillion outputs and split it evenly between all of those.
Okay, I'm
I
very
really hope we
curious.
see a 1 megger, a single block with a 1 meg pre-SegWit transaction.
Yeah, why not?
It'd be lit.
I mean, there's enough mining pools that I think are getting into this that it's possible, right?
Yeah, I think so. And
Right,
there's
because you need to collude with a miner to
You
do
need
that.
to collude with miner. Yeah, and there are a bunch of non-standard transaction submission services that people use to submit directly to a miner that accept non-standard transactions.
Yeah, I'm very curious to see. I'm very curious to see how the pre-runes airdrops go. I mean, I think, I was feeling more NGMI on it. Now that I'm thinking it through, I think it's totally doable. If you're just saying, if you hold this inscription, then you get this amount, and that's just what it is.
I just wonder if they will, if they'll be worth anything, right? Like,
I mean, come on.
Runestone has said, like, we're doing a dog coin. I wonder if they've picked the name of their dog coin.
Presumably, people have picked the names. They're just not saying them because they don't want someone else to take it.
Right, yeah.
Right?
But, like, is just saying that we're going to make a dog coin, is that enough to make a successful project to hit some, $1 billion market cap or whatever?
I mean, this is all just... I mean, what makes a successful meme coin, right?
Yeah.
Like, I think that there's some sort of je ne sais quoi
Yeah,
there.
yeah. I haven't seen any that I really think are going to be winners.
Yeah, but you haven't seen any names yet. Like, just wait till you see the names. I think
Okay.
you might be impressed because I feel like, I mean, part of why you didn't hard code 10 runes and only hard coded one is because, like, the names were not cutting it.
There were some good ones, you know.
Uncommon Goods was the best one in my
PFD,
PFD.
Piss Fetishist Doubloons.
Yeah, that one's, I mean, you're setting that up to be like a pre-mine pump and dump
Yeah.
now. No, I mean, it's just, I feel like whenever you were trying to come up with the 10 names and, you know, people were submitting their requests, you're like, oh, these are so bad. But if you're smart, you would never give Casey
True.
or anyone else your rune name.
Yeah, but if you're somebody who's like clever and who doesn't intend to actually etch a rune, and you come up with an idea, of course you would drop it.
Yeah, but that's like the
And
Venn
so
diagram intersection is like you.
I don't think so.
You think that there's a lot of people
I
that
think
have
there's like
good naming techniques.
Yeah, and who are just like, oh yeah, I'm just going to degen like everybody else. I'm not going to etch. Like, why not submit like a fun name? And I didn't see any good names. I saw one good name for a rune proposed.
Was that Piss Fetishist Doubloons?
No, that was the some Finnish palindrome, which is the longest palindrome in the world, which means soapstone seller.
That's cool.
Yep.
Okay. Well, maybe that'll be the winner then.
Maybe that'll be the winner. Yeah.
I mean, I think it's interesting. The memeability, right, is very key in a success here.
Yep.
And the memeability increases with more shorter name runes being unlocked, right?
I think so.
Did we talk about the name release?
We did not talk about the name release.
Yeah, talk about that.
So on the halving day, you can create runes that have 13 to 26 character names. And between this halving on April 20th and the next halving, I guess that would be April 20th, 2025, whenever it winds up being.
2028.
Oh, 2028. Yeah, right. 2028. Every 4 months, a new shorter length of character will be unlocked. So between the April 20th, 2024 and April 20th, 2024 plus 4 months, the 12 character runes will unlock. And then after that, the next 4 months, the 11 character runes will unlock. And then the 10 character runes, and then the 9 character runes, all the way for until the last 4 years, where the final characters Z through A, because it kind of counts down, will be unlocked.
It's the gift that keeps on giving.
It's a gift he keeps on giving. I think it's good because it's like a perpetual like hype cycle of like this new season of runes, right? Runes season 1, runes season 2.
Oh my God. It's going to be such a winner if we're in a bear market while the 4-letter runes get unlocked and you're able to get some of those cheaply.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's
Not financial advice.
not financial advice, but that's, you know, I'm just speculating here.
Yeah, it's just speculating. Just spitballing here.
I want to bet on some things because this will be released after the halving, so
Okay.
we'll be checked
Yep.
on it. What do you think the fees will be like at the halving block and around it?
I think we'll see. We might actually see a very brief period of very high fees.
That's what I think too. Like just a
Yeah, I think we'll
spike.
see like 1 to 3 days of extreme fees.
and
at
what
the
do you mean
most,
by extreme fees?
above 1,000 sats per VByte?
For like 1 to 3 days? You think above 1,000 sats per VByte for 1 to 3 days?
Maybe not. That would be really crazy.
I mean,
think,
how much? Okay, wait.
I think we'll
If-
see.
Can you, like, if fees are 1,000 sats per VByte,
Mm-hmm.
how expensive is it to do a single etching or minting transaction?
No, I think it's like hundreds of dollars.
To do a single etching or minting
I'd
transaction?
have to figure it out. I'm looking
That's
at
what I'm curious now.
41 sats per VByte. It's $3 to make a normal transaction. So let's say that at 50 sats per VByte, it's $4. So 10, 20 times $4 is
80.
$80.
So it's $80.
$80 for a normal transaction. You throw an op return in there, it's like $100.
Yeah, damn. I mean, that's worth it to etch your rune. No.
Yeah.
Like that's.
So
I mean,
actually-
now I'm just thinking.
Yeah,
it
now
through
so
live,
thinking
right?
about the fees, I actually don't think we'll see. I think we'll see a spike, a big spike to like I'll say 1,500 sats per VByte.
At the actual.
Yeah,
block.
for 1 or 2 or 10 or however many blocks.
Yeah.
And then I think it'll go down to like
A couple hundred.
couple hundred. Yeah, couple hundred. And I don't think it'll last for too long. Like, I don't know how much ammo the degens have in their cannons.
Yeah, I think it depends on your transaction, right? So I think, obviously the race to etch is the big thing for the halving block, right? You're like, I know what character, like 13 character plus name I want, and I want to make sure I get that.
And
so you might be willing to pay quite a bit to just secure that, right? That doesn't mean you're going to mint it.
And you might actually want your etching, your open mint, of your rune to start well after the halving block. You want to get it out there, and then you want to start memeing it for like a few weeks, let the fees die down, and then like people go for it.
I love this because this will not get out in time.
Yeah.
But maybe people will do it. Like maybe
people
see
will
that.
Figure it out. Yeah.
Yeah, but like, in order for that to work,
the delayed mint start, I think, is actually a significant advantage
so smart
of runes over BRC20.
Yeah. Yeah, because then you can secure your name.
You can secure your name.
And then you can meme the fuck out of it.
Yep.
And be like, it launches in a month.
Yep.
And just
get ready.
I wonder if people, I wonder if people will do that. I think you're right. That is the smart way to do it because if you're, in terms of the type of participation that you would want to do right around the halving when fees are going to be insane, it's securing your name. You're probably willing to spend a decent amount of money to secure your name.
Yep.
Maybe if you are like an airdrop project that just wants to get it out there and kind of like not, not build bad will towards you for not doing it, then maybe you also are willing to spend a decent amount of money to just airdrop the rune. But then in terms of trading and minting, I feel like there is a ceiling on what someone would be willing to do for that. Right? Like, would you spend $80 to just mint a single uncommon good, for example?
Yeah, probably not. I don't think anybody should do that.
But I'm sure
Definitely
there will.
Don't do that.
I'm sure there will be people that do that.
Yeah, there probably will be. This whole fees thing is crazy. Like, it just adds a whole
Can the devs
dimension.
do something? I mean, it's just so annoying.
It actually makes it kind of interesting. Like, imagine if Bitcoin transactions were just free. Like, it'd be so boring. Like, there wouldn't be much strategy to it. Everybody would just mint a bunch of junk. Like, there wouldn't be like, do you dare to mint?
Well, but that's...
Do you dare to spend $100 to get some magical beans?
I mean, that's what we saw with inscriptions, right? Is that if you make an NFT on another chain, you just plop your JPEG into the drag and drop box. You don't think about it. And you're like, okay, here's 10,000 monkeys. Whereas with an inscription, since you pay for all that data, you do have to do that kind of fee market calculus in your head to see like, okay, how much is this going to cost if I mint it or if I inscribe it at this price, and can I sell it for whatever, that there's that. Like, I think that some people are trained to think that way already through inscriptions. It is different with tokens because obviously an inscription, I think when you're paying for the data, it's a little bit more like you can visualize it in your head more. Like, oh, my image looks worse if I make it a smaller size, right? And so there's kind of that visual, artistic, creative limit. But I feel like with just pure shit coinery, it's kind of, I don't know. Like, I think it's a different calculation to make. But of course, it's still there.
Yeah. It's going to be wild. Yeah.
I feel like there's probably a baseline. I mean, so if fees are at 50 sats per VByte, that was like the $4 transaction, right?
Yeah.
That seems like a reason. No, I feel like maybe 100. Yeah, I think maybe we see.
What's your spike prediction? What's your high water mark? Because I think that's what we should bet on.
Dude, I feel like it could be like, I said 1,000 earlier, but now I feel like maybe it's like 3,000.
Really, 3,000?
The single block.
Oh, yeah. Well, I mean, we're betting like in the 3 days post halving.
So I think maybe the halving block specifically sees like 3,000 sats per VByte.
Could be.
Right? I mean,
could be.
Like, if you really want your name, you're just going to blast that shit.
You're going to blast it.
And I think there's enough people that will feel that way.
Yeah.
That I think the actual halving block will be that crazy. Maybe, I don't know, 3,000 is, I'm just throwing that out there. What's your number? Like, for the actual spike?
I think like 1,700.
1,700. Okay,
yeah.
so we'll see. This episode will be posted. We'll see who's wrong, or maybe we're both wrong.
How could we both be wrong?
I mean, it could be like 5,000, and then we're both wrong.
Yeah, but then you're closer.
Yeah, I guess.
Price is Right style.
Right. I feel like I have the advantage in that then, because it's like it's not going to be lower
than 1,700.
No, I mean, it's not going to be like 300. Like it's going to be higher.
Yeah.
So it's like I kind of have the upside advantage in the
1,700 is a crazy fee rate. I don't think we've ever seen a block with like, oh yeah, and what are we betting on? Are we betting on the median fee or the average? We're betting on the average fee.
Like the number that mempool.space shows when the block clears.
I don't know what that number is,
that?
but we should bet on the average fee.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you think the average fee will be
Average
17?
fee, 1,700.
Maybe that changes. No, I'm sticking to my guns. Fuck it.
Okay.
And if I'm wrong, what are we betting on?
I don't know.
Nothing.
Buy me lunch.
Okay.
Yeah,
Sounds good.
Lunch is on the line.
Yeah, lunch is on the fucking line here. But then I think, you see that initial spike and then I think it drops off, not to what it was before, right? Because there's still the incentive to secure your name.
Yeah, I mean, we saw
like people still want to secure the name and they want to mint the
and
thing
they want to
that's
mint. I
been
mean,
secured.
BRC20, post BRC20, we saw crazy fees for a long time, right? We saw like hundreds of sats per
I think
V byte
it was like
fees.
2 months.
Yeah,
Because I think that launched in March, and then I feel like it wasn't until May or June that things chilled.
How large were the fees? Do you remember what kind of fee rates did we see?
I want to say it was like 300 to 400 ish. No, but not all the time. Like
Yeah.
it was, but it was definitely
Yeah,
above 100. I want to say.
Okay, maybe 1,700 is conservative, but I
Do
already
you
made
remember
the
when we were in
bet.
Taiwan and fees were at 700 sats per V byte?
No, I don't.
We were at the nightclub, and then I was like the meme where it's like the guy in the corner, and I was like, they don't even know fees are at 700 sats per V byte. I don't remember why that happened. It was something like BRC 420 type bullshit, but 700 for like a not even runes.
Yeah.
I think I'm right. Okay, so I'm saying 3,000, and then I think we see like a baseline of like 300 to 500 for at least a week.
Yeah.
And then I think it drops.
Yeah.
And then I think maybe the baseline after that is maybe like we don't see fees less than like 50 sats per V byte, like generally speaking.
I think we could actually see sustained fees above like 100 for a while, because that gets down to the point where, oh yeah, people are willing to mint,
Yeah.
And then anytime fees go low, people are like, oh damn, I'm going to start minting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you think a reasonable baseline would be more like 100?
Yeah, maybe. Yeah. For like a few months afterwards. And it'll really be interesting if the dropping of the new names leads to this sort of continued like hype and surge,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, presumably it will, in the sense that there will be enough smart people that realize, okay, my name that I want is coming out in 2 weeks, and I'm gonna like set that.
Yep.
I mean that doesn't necessarily lead to so many fee spikes, right? Although I guess
It's the mints that are going to lead to fee spikes, I think.
it's the mints. You're right.
Because each block, only a few names get released.
And it's not right. That's actually an important distinction. It's not that 13 characters or more is released now, and then 4 months from now, 12 characters. It's every block more are released.
Yeah, and so there are many 12 character names. I mean, I haven't counted, but millions or billions of 12 character names. So
I think it's good what you're doing for the fee market.
I think so. I mean,
I think it's good.
We'll see.
I mean, you kind of spaced it out in a way that's like as undisruptive as possible for what it is.
Yeah, I didn't want there to be these cliffs where a ton would get released. Although, like when each, for what's 4 months divided by 26? I guess it's like 6 per month. So it's like one every like 5 days or something. It's like once every 5 days, a one character rune will drop.
Yeah,
for the
but
last
that's,
4 months.
We got time. That's like
We got time. We'll be dead by
we'll
then.
be in World War III by then. What else should we talk about? What do the most popular runes wind up being? The memeable ones. Oh, future features.
The only feature the big feature is some sort of runes lottery.
Did you do the turbo flag?
So runes can have a turbo flag.
This is very important.
Yeah, if the turbo flag is set, then they opt into future features that we don't want to make them opt out, or we don't want to make them by default. And these might be features that increase validation costs for light clients, which nobody cares about, or are just degenerate like gambling features.
Yeah.
So we're thinking about having like a runes lottery where every difficulty adjustment, every rune has its own lottery. And during the difficulty adjustment, you can trade your rune for tickets. And then one of those tickets wins and gets all the runes that were put into the lottery over the last 2 weeks.
I love that.
So it's a big winner.
The
The lottery market is huge. This could literally lotteries are big. Lotteries are big, and they take a huge cut.
Can you do an unconsensual lottery rune? Like where, okay, so you have a rune, right? And maybe you airdrop, let's say you have 1,000 of them and you airdrop them. No. You've 100,000 and you airdrop 100 to 1,000 people. And then every difficulty adjustment or whatever the lottery period is, 5 runes are unconsensually taken from everyone's rune balance and put in the lottery. And then one person wins it every 2 weeks. Can you do that?
We could do that. We probably would not do that.
Come on. I love unconsensual lottery rune. Come on. Okay. Someone make non-consensual, make non-consensual lottery rune, turbo flag true, or just put the turbo flag in.
Just put the turbo flag.
Just put the turbo.
Just put it out there.
And if enough people participate, maybe
it's not a good idea. Like people like buying tickets. People like buying tickets. They like trading runes for tickets.
I like the idea of like living in like a hellscape world where like 5% of your total money is taken and it has to go into the non-consensual lottery. But then sometimes you win and you're like, I love my society. I'm living in utopia.
Just totally recreate the worst parts of the fiat system.
Yeah, but very like explicitly.
Yeah.
I mean, that's kind of what you're doing with runes and shitcoining.
Yeah,
you're explicitly recreating the worst parts.
Yeah,
you know.
Well, not that. Well, at least it's open. It's transparent. And listen, like if somebody wants to do something serious on runes, like awesome. Like make a tether on runes. Make a backed, stable coin that people can use to protect themselves from volatility. Maybe take your company and issue the stock on runes and make one of those new weird.
That sounds like you're
Nevada,
not allowed to recommend that.
Make your Nevada corporation with your shares on runes, or your Wyoming corporation. They let you have like a code is law corporation. So
thank God.
It's a serious protocol. It's secure. It's good.
I definitely think that it's a good marketing material to say, oh, well, my runes token has the same security model as Bitcoin.
It does.
It does.
Yep.
That's true.
Yep.
But that does not mean that it has utility or value.
Yep.
It still is about as serious as this.
Yep.
If not less serious. I mean, I take the costumes pretty seriously.
Yeah, Erin was, she put a lot of work into the costume. Her costume.
Lolo put a lot of work.
Lolo.
Actually, we should thank our costume mistress.
Yeah.
It was Lolo Spears.
Our costumer.
Yeah. No, costume mistress is the official Broadway term. Okay. Like you have a costume mistress of the theater.
Even if you're a man?
Costume master? Yeah, that seems a bit much.
Yeah.
Yeah, so costume mistress, gender neutral term.
Yep, that's
Thanks,
right.
Lolo.
All right, we ready to wrap this one up? We got anything to say? You should join.
Good luck, have fun.
Good luck, have fun. Join the Hell Money Pod Patreon.
You support things like
when
this.
you sign up, make sure to enter your Ordinals, inscriptions, and runes address on the sign up form.
I don't know if you should be saying stuff like that.
That's fine.
It's true. I mean, there is a form that you can put your thing
in.
And
it does ask for your Bitcoin address. It
does ask for an Ordinals aware address.
That's right. Yeah.
Which also makes it a runes aware address.
Well, yeah.
Wait,
depends
right?
on the wallet. Yeah. I mean, Ord can deal with that. Other wallets.
Presumably, if it's an Ordinals aware wallet, then it also understands runes.
Well, if it was like a third-party service that supported inscriptions but didn't implement support for runes, then you might have trouble.
Okay, that's a good point.
Yeah.
Okay, so be careful out there.
Be careful. But the address we're asking for should also be a runes address.
Okay. With that, thank you for watching.
Thank you very much, and thanks to all the degens around the world, especially in Asia.
Yeah. We do it for them.
We do it for them.
And happy having.
Happy
I
having.
hope that it's happening, whatever. Yep. I hope that everyone has fun, that if you get wrecked, you are expecting to get wrecked and it's not a huge surprise. We've told you enough times.
Yep.
My recommendation was going to be as you're degenning, if you make profits, realize them into Bitcoin and then send them. Can you do like a time locked wallet?
You can, but really just put it into a cold storage wallet.
No, I know, but if you
could
can't
do a time locked wallet, but nobody makes wallets that have time locks.
But if you can't control yourself,
send it to your wife. Give your profits to your wife.
Give your profits to your wife.
Unless she's the degen.
And
in which case you should give your profits to your husband. Whoever's the degen, don't give it to them.
Do not give it to them. Yeah. Secure away whatever fun profits you may get into
Get the
Bitcoin.
bag. And if you lose all your money, it's a learning lesson.
Yes. And also just maybe don't participate at all.
Yeah, you don't have to participate at all.
You don't have to participate.
Buy Bitcoin. You just live your normal life.
Yeah. You don't even have to buy Bitcoin, although I think you should.
You should. Yeah, that is financial advice.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Thanks, everyone.
All right. Bye.
Bye.